If you've ever struggled to keep your garden fertile season after season, adding compost, fertilizers and amendments only to see the soil fade again, you're not alone. Every gardener faces the same slow depletion. But, a few years back, I stumbled upon a method that changed everything. Instead of building compost piles beside the garden, I started building one underneath it. What began as an experiment turned into a continuous growth engine. Today, the beds I laid over that underground compost line haven't stopped producing vigorous growth, rich yields, and unbelievably dark soil. This guide will walk you through why this method works, how it sustains itself, and exactly how you can set it up in your own space. The concept of an underground compost line came from solving two recurring garden problems. For years, I battled with two issues: compost that dried out before it finished breaking down, and garden beds that lost fertility mid-season. Traditional compost piles are efficient on paper, but they require turning, moisture monitoring, and space, plus much of the heat and nutrients escape into the air. That's when I began thinking differently. What if the composting process happened directly in the soil, where worms, roots and microbes could interact with it from the start? By creating a narrow compost line beneath my garden beds, I essentially built a living, breathing nutrient factory that never goes dormant. The compost line feeds from below, allowing plants to access slow-releasing nutrients through the entire growing season. It's like giving your plants a steady diet instead of a one-time meal. The buried compost line acts as a long-term nutrient engine beneath the soil. The science behind why this works is simple but powerful. When you bury decomposing material below root level, usually 8 to 12 inches deep, you create an oxygen-limited but biologically active environment. Microbes and worms move in, feeding on the material, digesting it and turning it into humus right where your roots grow. Unlike surface composting, buried organic matter breaks down slower, meaning it feeds your plants steadily for months, even years. As decomposition continues, the underground compost line functions almost like a pulse of fertility running through the soil. Microbes expand outward, forming colonies that feed plant roots with readily available nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. Meanwhile, the decaying material improves soil structure, creating air pockets and moisture channels. Over time, it becomes a natural irrigation system that reduces watering needs and keeps the soil biologically alive year-round. To create a compost line, start with a trench roughly 10 inches deep and 10 inches wide, running along the length of your bed or between planting rows. The distance from your plants depends on their root systems. For shallow-rooted plants like lettuce or spinach, keep the compost line about 6 inches away from the stems. For deeper crops like tomatoes, peppers or squash, a 10 to 12-inch spacing works perfectly. Once your trench is ready, begin layering. The best results come from alternating carbon and nitrogen sources in a balanced ratio. A simple mix is 2 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen. For instance, layer 2 inches of shredded dry leaves, straw or cardboard, that's your carbon, followed by 1 inch of kitchen scraps, green weeds or manure, which provides the nitrogen. Just continue building until the trench is about 2/3 full. Before closing it, sprinkle a handful of garden soil or finished compost over the layers. This starter soil inoculates the mix with decomposer microbes that accelerate breakdown. Finally, backfill the trench with the excavated soil and water it thoroughly to settle the material. Within a few weeks, the microbial life will start working, creating a slow, continuous composting process beneath the surface. The real magic happens after a full season. The buried material shrinks as it decomposes, creating soft, aerated channels that act as permanent worm corridors. Earthworms love the environment because it's moist, warm and full of food. They digest the compost, excrete worm castings, and multiply inside the trench. Eventually, the compost line turns into a rich vein of black, worm-processed humus that seeps fertility outward into the surrounding soil. In my own garden, I noticed that the plants directly above these lines were always darker and more vigorous. Roots naturally follow the moisture gradient downward, tapping into the underground compost. Even better, the system doesn't require annual digging or flipping. You simply top it up every year or two by opening one end of the line and adding a new layer of organic matter. The decomposers do the rest. Traditional compost piles often lose up to half their nutrients through evaporation or leaching, especially nitrogen. By burying the compost line, those nutrients stay trapped within the soil matrix. Rainwater percolates through, carrying dissolved minerals horizontally through the root zone instead of washing them away. The compost line also acts as a moisture reservoir. During hot seasons, the decomposing material retains water like a sponge, slowly releasing it into the surrounding soil. This means your plants stay hydrated longer, even between waterings. You don't need acres of land to make a compost line work. In raised beds, dig a single narrow trench right down the centre before planting. Fill and cover it as described, and plant along both sides. The roots will reach into the nutrient zone as they grow, benefiting from the buried organic matter all season. In larger gardens or field plots, compost lines can be placed every 2 or 3 feet, depending on spacing. I've even used alternating lines in rotation, feeding one while the other rests, to maintain fertility indefinitely without ever building a separate compost pile. It's as efficient as it is sustainable. Instead of hauling compost or relying on store-bought fertilizer, you're creating fertility in situ, exactly where plants can use it. Kitchen waste, grass clippings, shredded paper, and aged manure all find a new purpose underground. The slow decomposition process means nothing goes to waste. Every molecule of carbon and nitrogen is converted into soil richness rather than escaping as gas. This approach mirrors natural soil building. Forests and grasslands grow from the ground up because organic material decays where it falls, not in a separate pile. By adopting this underground composting method, you bring that same principle into your backyard. The result is soil that improves itself continuously, with less input and less maintenance each season. The first year, you'll notice better moisture retention and moderate growth improvement. By the second, you'll start seeing major differences: richer soil colour, looser texture, and plants that hardly need extra feeding. After 3 years, you'll realise you've built a permanent fertility corridor that requires only occasional recharging with new organic matter. It's not just a method. It's a soil-building habit that compounds benefits year after year. And it costs nothing but time and scraps you'd otherwise throw away. So, if your garden's losing vigour or your compost piles keep drying out, take a spade, dig a narrow line beneath your beds, and feed your soil from below. Once you do, your plants will keep growing stronger with every passing season. If this breakdown helped you rethink how composting fits into your growing system, make sure to subscribe to Hydro Haven. Share this guide with fellow gardeners, and keep exploring ways to let the soil do the work for you. Because when your compost lives underground, your garden never stops thriving above it.